I never wanted to tell this story. Honestly, I stayed silent for years. Because who would believe someone who died and came back? Who would believe that you could leave your body, see heaven, meet Jesus himself, and then return? But what Jesus showed me in that moment, what he told me about white people, changed everything. Not just for me. Maybe for you too. And if I don't share it, I think I'll spend the rest of my life carrying a heart heavy as stone. So I ask you, if you can listen, please stay with me until the end. Have you ever wondered if heaven is real, what it would be like? And if you stood before your Lord, what would he ask you first? I used to think he'd ask if I was a good person, if I kept the faith, if I loved my family well. But no. When I stood before Jesus, he didn't ask me anything. He just looked at me. And in that gaze, I saw the truth. About this world. About us. About the forces pulling our strings day by day, hour by hour, under the masks of race, religion, and righteousness. My name is Angela Brooks. I'm a black nurse. A single mom. I live in a neighborhood you wouldn't write a story about. Im no propet. No preacher. I used to believe in God, and then I lost faith. I believed in justice, and then I lost hope. I used to think that if I just worked hard enough, lived kindly enough, the world would return the favor. But it didn't. I was wrong. You know, there are things they don't teach you in church. That light doesn't always shine bright. That sometimes truth doesn't come through angelic voices, but through the darkest, most painful moments. The moment you think you're about to die. The moment when you've got nothing left to hold on to, no one left to call out to. It's in that moment that you finally hear what you've been deaf to all along. I used to think that truth was something lofty, something reserved for the educated, the powerful, the righteous. But when I saw Jesus, when he looked at me, I understood something I had never grasped before. Truth doesn't care about skin color. It doesn't pick sides between right and wrong. It doesn't stand with black or white. Truth only stands with light. And that light brought me to my knees. But it was also the very thing that helped me rise again. Have you ever felt like everything you believed your whole life suddenly lost its foundation? Like your entire existence was built on assumptions you mistook for truth? I've been there. I stood in that moment. I saw what lay behind the curtain we often call faith. And what Jesus told me about white people. It's nothing like what you've heard in church, or on TV, or from preachers with polished words and practiced smiles. But before I tell you what he said, you need to know who I am. You need to know how I lived, and why I lost my faith in the first place. Because if you don't understand the pain, you'll never understand the weight of forgiveness. If you've never felt injustice down to your bones, you won't recognize what real righteousness looks like. And if you think this part has already shaken you, just wait until I tell you about the final morning before I died. Because it was in that seemingly ordinary morning, coffee brewing, sun rising, nothing out of place, that everything began to fall apart, only so it could be rebuilt by light. That morning, the sky was heavy and gray, clouds drifting like slow-moving ashes across a weary sky. I didn't wake up with joy or purpose. I woke up because of the alarm clock. Made coffee. Put on my nurse's uniform. Slipped 2 painkillers into my pocket because my knees had been hurting more than usual. When I looked in the mirror, I felt hollow. Not ugly. Not beautiful. Just absent. No longer the Angela who used to laugh out loud in old photographs. Just a body that knew how to work, pay bills, and quietly survive. I'm a single mother. My son Malik is in 8th grade. He barely talks anymore, always has his earbuds in, distant. He hasn't opened up the way he did when he was little. After being bullied at school for his skin color and his Arabic name, he shut down. I tried to get closer. The more I tried, the more he pulled away. One time I asked him, "Are you okay?" He didn't answer. He just looked at me as if to ask, "Are you?" I didn't have an answer. I wasn't okay either. I used to have a husband, Kelvin. A good black man, but a tired one. After losing his job for the 3rd time, he changed. One rainy night, when Malik was barely 2, Kelvin slammed the door and walked out. He never came back. No phone call. No child support. I didn't even resent him. I was too tired to resent. My father was a pastor, just a small one, serving the black community on the east side of the city. He was shot by police while trying to break up a fight. He had nothing in his hands but a Bible. They said it was a mistake. They said they were sorry. But what apology brings back the dead? I stopped going to church after his funeral. Not because I hated God, but because I wasn't sure he was real. I work at a nursing home now. The women I care for were once teachers, nurses, artists. Now they lie still in their beds, hair silver like ash, skin thin as paper. I've taken care of Mrs. Whitmore for years. She used to be an English teacher. Once stern, once proud. Now confused, drifting. But sometimes, just sometimes, she'd have moments of startling clarity. Like that day. I was wiping her face when suddenly she grabbed my hand and whispered, "You know, my daughter once loved a black man. I didn't let her marry him. I was afraid of what people would say." I didn't respond. Not out of anger, but out of familiarity. I was used to that kind of regret, the kind that always comes too late. She held my hand tighter, her voice trembling. "Do you think God will forgive me?" I looked up at her faded eyes, and in them, I saw something deeply human still flickering. I answered, "I don't know. I'm not even sure I believe anymore." At noon, I stepped outside for a quick sandwich, sitting on the stone bench outside the nursing home. I watched the soft rain fall, watched the old oak tree shedding its leaves. I remembered something my father once said. Faith isn't a feeling. It's an action. But what do you do when you don't feel anything at all? When even your soul has gone numb? That afternoon, I stopped by the local grocery store. The owner, an older white woman, used to tell stories about her husband serving in Vietnam. She looked at me and asked, "Angela, you look so tired lately." I just smiled. Tired wasn't a feeling anymore. It had become who I was. I pulled out my wallet, paid for my things, and stepped out into heavier rain. That night, I made ginger tea for Malik. He didn't drink it. I left it on the table, scribbled a quick note that said, "I love you." I wasn't sure he'd read it. I wasn't sure I even remembered how to love. I couldn't sleep that night. I left the lamp on and stared at the ceiling, at the long cracks in the old paint. I thought about my father, about the sermons he used to preach, about the last time he held me and said, "Angela, you are light." I didn't believe him. I had never seen any light in me. At the time, I didn't know. But the next morning would be my last in this body. Just another morning, or so it seemed. But it would launch a journey that stretched beyond life, beyond death, and the truth I was about to encounter would challenge everything you've ever believed to be true. You think you know the truth about this world? About division, hatred, and justice? Then I waited for what came next when I left my body and, for the first time, saw the full picture from above. That morning, the sky wasn't just gloomy, it felt like a soul sighing. The breeze crept through my thin jacket, sharp enough to make me shiver, but it wasn't from the cold. It was something else. A strange sensation I couldn't name, like something invisible was waiting for me in the shadows. I didn't dwell on it. My life had never had room for things that couldn't be explained. I drove to work like I always did, one hand on the wheel, the other holding a cup of hot coffee. The radio was playing "Take Me to the King," the gospel song my mother used to play every Sunday morning when I was just a little girl, too young to understand pain or injustice. The voice of a black woman filled the car, both a plea and a surrender. I didn't sing along. I just exhaled. Everything felt too familiar, like I was stuck inside a loop, living a life that kept rewinding. The highway was slick from the night's rain, and a misty drizzle still clung to the windshield. I turned on the wipers. With every swipe, the world seemed to split apart and piece itself back together, blurry, distorted. I was turning into the intersection when I saw its headlights blazing straight into my eyes. A truck, out of control, skidding sideways, flailing like a wild animal with no sense of direction. I had no time to scream, no time to even breathe. I just opened my eyes wide. Then everything hit. The crash thundered like the sky itself was tearing open. Pain, cold, a sudden sting, darkness, and then silence. A silence so complete it was terrifying. No rain, no music, no sound at all. I opened my eyes, or I thought I did, but all I saw was silver gray. I felt like I was drifting, weightless, without direction or form. No arms, no legs, but somehow I was still there, more clearly than ever. And then, I saw myself. I saw Angela Brooks. Saw my body twisted in the wreckage, pinned in the crushed frame of the car. Blood on my forehead. My left arm bent the wrong way. I didn't feel pain, but I knew. I had left my body. Some part of me still couldn't believe it. Was that me? Had I died? But I didn't need to ask. I already knew. I saw the crowd gathering. A woman was crying as she called 911. A man took off his coat and laid it over me to shield me from the rain. I saw the ambulance arrive, police blocking the road, people holding up their phones, recording as if I had become part of some real-life tragedy documentary. But the thing that stunned me most was seeing my mother. She stood there, just a few feet away, wearing the white dress she had worn on her last Easter Sunday before she passed. She didn't speak. She just smiled. Her eyes glistened, holding the weight of the sky itself. I wanted to call out, "Mom," but I had no mouth left to speak. It didn't matter. We understood each other in a different way now, not through words, but through the soul. Then I felt something pulling me, gently yet irresistibly, like a warm stream carrying a small leaf downstream. I wasn't afraid. Strangely, I felt peace, a peace I had never known in life. No more bills, no more racism, no more pressure to be a mother, to be good. Just presence, just light. This light, it wasn't like sunlight or lamps. It didn't come from somewhere. It came from everywhere. It was alive, as if it breathed, as if it knew me, saw through me. I felt small, fragile, exposed, but not judged. I used to think that when you die, judgment comes immediately. But it didn't. Not here. There was no courtroom, only truth. And truth doesn't need to speak. Then a gate appeared before me. Not a gate of gold like in the book of Revelation, but a gate made of memory. Every moment of my life played back like a film. The first time I fell in love, the lie I told my mother, the night I cried alone after giving birth to Malik, the scream that tore out of me the day I found out my father had been shot. All of it, every second, was vivid, as if it were happening for the very first time. I thought I had forgotten so much. But no, nothing is forgotten in this place. Everything is recorded, as if the soul itself is a living hard drive that cannot be erased. I wanted to turn back. I wasn't ready. I still had a son, still had promises left unfinished. But my body no longer held authority. I had left it, and I was being drawn somewhere else. A vast space without edges. A place beyond time, beyond names. In that space, I felt a presence, an energy, a soul greater than all other souls. And when I looked up, I saw a figure unlike any person I had ever encountered. No distinct face, but eyes that held the weight of the universe. And I knew. It was Jesus. And in that moment, when he looked at me, I realized something. The most terrifying thing isn't death. It's the truth that's about to be revealed. A truth about this world. About humanity. About the force that's dividing us under the disguise of skin color. And what he said next, what he told me, was the reason I stayed silent for so many years. But you won't have to wait years. In the next part, I will tell you about the conversation that changed me forever. The moment that stripped away everything I thought I knew. And it might just do the same to you. I had heard about Jesus throughout my childhood. His picture hung on our wall. He was in the church services, in the bedtime prayers my mother whispered each night. But I had never truly known him. I used to imagine that if heaven were real, he would appear like a mighty king, seated on a throne, radiating with the brilliance of a June sun. But when I came face to face with him in that moment, I realized holiness wasn't loud. It wasn't dazzling. It was quiet, so quiet it took your breath away. He didn't speak at first. He just looked at me. And in that gaze, I found myself unable to hide. Not because I feared judgment, but because, for the first time in my life, I felt truly seen. I stood in an invisible realm. The space around me wasn't earth, wasn't sky. It was present, living, pulsing, sacred. It felt like my soul was floating in an ocean of light. Each ray carried sound, and each sound carried knowing. I understood that here, there were no lies, no disguises, no social masks. Everything was true in its purest, rawest form. Jesus moved closer to me. There were no footsteps, no wind. Yet I could feel every step he took, as if the entire space trembled, as if my heart cracked open. I wanted to fall to my knees, not from fear, but from love, a love that defied every human word I'd ever known. And then he placed his hand on my shoulder. Though he didn't touch my skin, I felt my entire soul being wrapped in something divine. "Angela," he said, his voice like waves breaking against the shore of my heart, "you do not belong to the darkness." I couldn't speak. My chest tightened. He continued, "You once believed you had to be strong just to survive. You believed your skin color was a burden, a boundary, a sentence. But I tell you this, no one is born to hate. Hate is planted. And that planting did not come from me." I began to cry. Not just tears, but the kind of weeping that tears open every wound you've tried to bury. I wanted to ask something, anything, but before I could speak, Jesus lifted his hand and pointed to a massive mirror that appeared, suspended in the air. And in that mirror, I saw the world. I saw war, protests, division, endless arguments over race, religion, and politics. I saw comment sections on social media filled with hate. I saw people using God's name to tear each other down. I saw white people afraid of losing power. I saw people of color afraid of being forgotten. I saw souls being manipulated, without even realizing they were being manipulated. Angela, Jesus said, the problem isn't white people. The problem is fear. And the darkness has learned how to use skin color to spread that fear. They've made humanity forget they were once one. They've made humanity believe that even light must take sides. I trembled. He continued, they use history to accuse. They use media to divide. They use religion to control. And the most dangerous thing of all is that they've convinced people they don't exist. I cried out silently in my soul. Then what must I do? He turned and looked at me, his eyes as gentle as still water. You must tell them. You must speak. Even if they don't believe you. Even if they laugh. Even if they say you made it up. Because truth doesn't need agreement to be true. It only needs to be spoken. I bowed my head. My soul trembled. Jesus placed his hand on my forehead, and I felt a beam of light cut through memory itself. I saw my mother's tears when she prayed over me as a child. I saw my father preaching forgiveness even when he was rejected. I saw my son with his head buried in his arms in his room while I wasn't watching. I saw all the moments I thought I was worthless, but in Jesus' eyes, I had never once been without value. He said, when you return, it won't be easy, but you won't be alone. I shook with emotion. But I'm afraid, I whispered. I know, he said, but you've lived too long in fear. Now, it's time you live in the light. I asked one final time, Jesus, do you truly forgive everyone? He didn't answer with words. He simply smiled, and that smile shattered every chain that had ever bound my soul. In that moment, I understood true forgiveness isn't about letting go of what happened. It's about reclaiming the part of your soul that was lost to bitterness. Jesus raised his hand once more, and in that light, I saw another vision. A map of the earth not made of land or mountains, but of waves. Waves of faith, fear, darkness, and light weave through each other. I saw cities once glowing, now dimming, not because they had lost electricity, but because they had lost hope. I saw people walking crowded streets with empty hearts. I saw children born carrying the unhealed pain of their parents, and parents still haunted by the wounds of their upbringing. A quiet, aching cycle. Persistent. Heavy. And the Lord said, this was never my intention. I turned to him, wanting to ask why humanity had fallen into such a trap. Jesus didn't answer with words. He simply gestured toward me, and the vision shifted. I saw history flipping past like pages in the wind. I saw slavery, war, and oppression. I saw revolutions shouted in the name of freedom, but fueled by resentment. I saw people fighting for justice, but losing compassion in the process. I saw oppressors who were once victims. Everything had a reason, but not every reason came from the light. Jesus said, every soul is born from light, but not every soul is raised in it. When darkness enters the human heart, it doesn't destroy with violence, it speaks. It speaks through words, through reasoning, through pain that's been permitted to make sense. And I understood then the greatest danger isn't some distant evil force. It's the quiet, growing darkness within ourselves. The kind born from anger, from fear, from feeling unseen and forgotten. Then he pointed to a door. Behind it, I saw bright churches glowing with lights. Grand prayer meetings. But behind the shine were shattered hearts. Weary pastors. Worshippers repeating words they no longer felt. Faith is not a ritual, Jesus said. It is life that moves through every small act of love. But when people turn faith into a system of control, that is no longer light. A deep, nameless ache rose in my chest. For years, I had searched for truth through books, through logic, through other people's voices. But never, not once, had I asked my own heart. And now, standing in the presence of the Creator, I knew truth isn't something to be debated. Truth is something to live with, to become one with, to embody. Jesus touched my forehead again, and this time, I saw one last image. A face my face, but brighter, more peaceful. The eyes no longer carried fear. And he said, this is you. When you are no longer carrying the weight of history. When you are no longer living from fear. When you no longer search for your worth in someone else's eyes. I looked at that image for a long time. And I wept. Not from sorrow, but because for the first time, I saw myself as beautiful. A beauty not born from skin color, achievements, or compliments. But from the realization, I had once been light. And I could be light again. Jesus never told me to be perfect. He only asked me to be real. And truth is the first light of every healing. The light began to pull away. I felt myself falling back into the world I came from. But I was no longer the old Angela Brooks. I returned carrying a promise, a calling, and a truth too powerful to keep quiet. Because in the next part, I will tell you what it was like to wake up again, to face the doubt, to forgive those who had hurt me, and to find the courage to speak about something no one wanted to believe. Because ever since that moment, I've known light isn't something you see. It's something you become. I opened my eyes to the steady rhythm of a ventilator and the blinding white light of the ICU. The smell of antiseptic hit me hard, sharp, sterile, familiar in the way that made me panic. I was a nurse. I had watched countless patients wake up from comas, but I never imagined I would be the one lying in that bed, tangled in wires, with doctors staring at me in disbelief. I had come back, but I knew I was no longer the same Angela Brooks. In that very first moment of waking, I didn't feel pain. The only thing I felt was gratitude, a deep, overwhelming gratitude that filled every corner of my being and had no words. I glanced around and saw my son sitting in the corner of the room, his head resting on his arm, drifting in and out of sleep. He looked thinner, worn. He must have stayed up for days watching over me. I tried to move my hand just a little, and he stirred awake. When he saw my eyes open, his tears poured out like a dam breaking. "Mom," he said, "can you hear me?" I nodded. I couldn't speak yet, but I heard. And for the first time in years, my heart felt whole. In the days that followed, the doctors called me a miracle case. They said I had been clinically dead for several minutes, no heartbeat, no brain activity. They said I wasn't supposed to wake up. But I did, and I knew it wasn't medicine that brought me back. It was the light. I shared my experience with a few close relatives. Most sat in silence. Some said it was just a dream. Others thought I was confused. A few gently suggested I see a therapist. But I didn't blame them. How could I blame someone for not believing in something they'd never seen? I just smiled, because I didn't need them to believe. I only needed to remember. A week after I was discharged, I returned to the nursing home. Everyone was shocked to see me. Mrs. Whitmore looked at me for a long time before whispering, "Are you Angela, or an angel?" I laughed softly but then fell quiet, because I understood she wasn't joking. I sat beside her and held her hand. She whispered, "I think I'm leaving soon. You know that, don't you?" I nodded. And she wept. "I don't want to die full of regret." I held her hand tighter and whispered back, "You won't. The light always forgives those brave enough to face the truth." I started to write. Every detail I had seen, heard, and felt, I wrote it down. Not to become famous. Not to convince anyone. I wrote so I wouldn't lose what the darkness always wants us to forget, that we were once light. I shared my story online, and almost instantly the responses poured in. Some called me a fraud. Some called me a messenger. Some said nothing at all but read in silence. But among the thousands of comments, one made me weep. I used to think I was unworthy of love. But after hearing your story, I started praying again. Thank you. I haven't seen Jesus again since that day. But every time I close my eyes, I feel his presence in the rhythm of my breath, in the morning birdsong, in my son's eyes, and in the moment I forgave the person who hurt me the most, the officer who shot my father. I don't know his name. I've never met him. But I chose to let go. Not because he deserved it, but because I deserved peace. And then one day, I stood before the church where my father once preached. That afternoon, sunlight poured through the stained glass windows, casting soft rainbows across the stone floor. I stepped up to the old wooden pulpit, looked out at the empty pews, and spoke. I died. And I came back, not to tell a sensational story, but to tell the truth. We are not defined by our skin color. We are defined by the light we choose to live by. When I finished, there was no applause, just a deep, sacred silence. An elderly man stood, leaned on his cane, and slowly made his way out. As he passed, he turned back, looked at me, and nodded. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. I knew he had heard me. And if you've stayed with me this far, I ask you not to stop now. In the final part, I will tell you what Jesus said about white people. The truth I've carried in my heart for years. A truth that not only awakened me, but just might change the way you see the world, too. This is the part you've been waiting for since the beginning. The part one was once afraid to speak aloud. The truth Jesus whispered to me in that sacred place, where there were no lines between right and wrong, no borders between race or status. He didn't say white people were evil. He didn't say they were the root of injustice. No, not at all. What Jesus told me was far deeper than that. He said, Angela, white people are not the enemy, but it is their fear of losing their place in a changing world that is killing their souls. I was stunned. I had always seen myself as the only victim, but Jesus showed me that many white people, too, are victims of a system that taught them their worth is tied to being above. And when the world shifts, they panic. They cling to privilege as if letting go would mean disappearing. And from that fear, they lose the light. Not because they are bad, but because they've been deceived. He continued, when a person defines their worth by being above someone else, they have stepped out of the light. That truth applies to everyone, white, black, Asian, anyone. I saw it. I had once defined myself by my pain, by loss, by the story of being oppressed. I once believed I was better because I had suffered more. But in the light of God, there is no better or worse. There is only real and false. Only light and darkness. Jesus showed me white children being taught hatred from a young age. Adults telling them, you have to protect your power, as if that was the only thing keeping them alive. I saw black and brown parents like me teaching their children to be wary, to hate, to stay guarded. And I understood. Both sides were wounded. Both sides were unhealed. And the darkness was growing stronger by feeding off that division. He said, division is not a result. It is a strategy. And it succeeds when you choose sides instead of choosing the light. Those words left me speechless. For years I had fought, protested, spoke loudly about justice. But I had forgotten something. Justice without love is just vengeance in disguise. And love without truth is dangerous blindness. Only when we hold both truth and love can we truly live in the light. So what did Jesus say about white people? It was a wake-up call, not meant to criticize, but to illuminate. Not to divide, but to set free. He said, when you look at another person and all you see is the color of their skin, no matter what color, you have lost the eyes of the soul. Light has no nationality, no ethnicity, no political side. Light is light. And anyone who chooses to live with honesty, with love, without fear, can be that light in this world. I'm not telling you this to preach. I've been lost too. I've hated. I've blamed. But when I saw the world from the other side, I saw there was no one completely right, no one entirely wrong. There were only souls trying to find their way back home. And if I, a black woman who lost her faith, who was deeply wounded, could let go, then I believe you can too. So if tomorrow you pass someone who looks different from you, different skin, different faith, different story, don't rush to pull away or react. Try instead to see them as a soul that once was light. Like you, like me, like all of us before we forgot who we are. And if there's one final message I was allowed to bring back from the other side, it's this. You are not. If you've listened to this story to the end, if something in your heart stirred, even just a little, if you've ever felt trapped in judgment, in pain, or in the quiet ache of not belonging, then please don't let this moment pass like just another video. Do something small but real. Forgive someone not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Open your heart to someone who once felt distant, maybe because of their skin, their religion, or just their difference. Speak words of love to yourself, to your family, even to a stranger you pass on the street. Look someone in the eye and instead of asking, who are they? Ask, what does this soul need? And if you feel this story might reach someone else, share it. Not so I can be known, but so the light can spread. So someone somewhere, lost in their darkness, might begin to remember who they are. One share can reach a soul that's drifting. One honest comment might begin someone's healing. We've been divided for too long. We've forgotten that we are all children of light. Don't wait for a near-death experience to wake up. You can begin again today if you're willing to walk toward the light. And if you're still reading this last line, remember, you are not alone. I've been to the deepest place of darkness, and I came back to tell you the light never left. It's been here all along, just waiting for you to come home.